out!
Hey, what's up everybody? This is Super501 and today I want to show you guys another Amara build. Now this is going to be very similar to the last Amara build I did, but a lot of the items are going to be different and all the items are now going to be level 57 items. Now most of these aren't complete god rolls, but they are very good and you're easily able to do everything on Mayhem 4, including the raid, pretty easily. Some of these items are incredibly strong just in the overall balancing of the game right now. So with that being said, we can go into the talents. Now before we get into the talents, we have to take a look at the class mod because this does dictate quite a few of our talent choices. So we're using the Spiritual Driver, still one of the best class mods of the game, super good, especially if you're just trying to farm more items to be able to try more builds. For Amara, just using this makes most builds pretty decent, and this is whenever Amara activates her action skill, she applies her action skill element to herself, which then will activate our artifact, giving us a bunch more damage. Amara's gun damage is increased while moving. The quicker she moves, the greater the gun damage bonus. The main roll you want on this is +3 to mindfulness. That's the highest you can get on mindfulness. For this class mod, that's what you want, and that dictates quite a bit of our talent choices, mainly going into the Brawl tree, which first we go 2 Root to Rise for health, 3 into personal space for increased damage. We go 5 into arms deal. Now this is if you're using weapons that deal splash damage. I am using some weapons like that, so that's why I go into that. If you're not and using different weapons with this build, you could pretty much just go Root to Rise, go into something that helps with your survivability. Then 3 into mindfulness. This, when you take damage, gives you stacking movement speed increases, which is the main thing we want, which gives us massive damage increases with our class mod. Then we can go into the main tree, Fist of the Elements, 5 into Anima, increased status effect damage, duration, all super good. 3 into Steady Hands. This is for weapon handling and accuracy. Now you don't necessarily need this, just some of the weapons I'm using in this build do have quite a bit of recoil, so I like going into this, make it a little bit more controllable, because also when you're using this build, you're moving so fast that you want to be able to control your weapon as best as possible to be able to actually hit things. Tempest, increased elemental damage, extra shock damage. Wildfire, whenever you apply status effect, it can spread to everything around it. Pretty good. Now we don't go into infusion because with this specific build and with this class mod, you want to always have the same element that you're using as your status effect element. So if you're using a shock weapon, you want to have the shock status effect or your shock action skill as your element, so you can get that increased damage from your artifact and from applying that to yourself. Fusion really won't do much for you. Then we have Dread. If you happen to hit anything with your grasp, this gives you increased damage. We don't do it much, but sometimes it happens. Indiscriminate, your bullets have a chance to ricochet around. This is incredibly strong, especially if you're doing a raid or any AoE situation. Deep Well increases your magazine size with elemental weapons. 5 into Sustainment, which is our main survivability, gives you lifesteal off your elemental damage. 20%, pretty much any of the weapons you're using, if you hit one thing, you're probably going to be full healed, and it's just being able to constantly heal yourself without dying in one shot, which can happen. Conflux, whenever you apply a status effect, you have a chance to apply other status effects, electrocute, ignite, or melt. And the main reason we're doing this is if you go to one of the new Guardian rank talents, enemies take 5% more damage per unique status effect affecting them. So if you're facing tankier things, or if you're AoEing things around, they're just going to start taking more damage, and 5% per status effect, which we can apply a lot of them. So that's why I do this one. Helps stack that faster, gives us more damage, can be a pretty big damage increase now with that new Guardian rank talent. The last point, Force of Expression, you deal extra elemental damage based on your action skill element with your weapons. For our last points, we're going Mythical Assault, 1 into Do Harm, 1 into Violent Tapestry as rush effects, pretty much just to have them. They don't do a ton, but just to have them and to get lower in the tree. Fast Hands for reload speed, weapon swap speed. You actually do use mode switch and reload speed quite a bit. Then Transcend, after you use your action skill, you gain accuracy, critical hit damage for a long time. So that's going to be up all the time, and the accuracy helps, like I said, for the recoil. Since you're moving so fast, you want to control your weapon, and critical damage always super good, and this is going to be up all the time as well. For our abilities, we are using Ties of Bind. If you accidentally hit something, you want Ties of Bind. Usually you're not hitting anything with it, but it does happen sometimes. You'll look at the ground and it'll randomly hit something, so you want that. Allure, mainly, again, if you accidentally hit something, you can pull stuff in, which is really good for certain weapons. And then for your action skill elements, we can use all 3 of them, so we can do Shock, Fire, and Corrosive. Whatever weapon you're currently using, you want to have that on, so when you apply your status effect to yourself, yourself and you're using the artifact we're using, it'll give you a ton of damage increase. So with that being said, we can go into the items. Now for the items, like I said, these are all level 57 items, but they're not god rolled. A lot of these are pretty good, but they're not absolutely god rolled yet. We already went over our class mod. Our artifact, you want elemental projector. I have a victory rush one, which is pretty good. This isn't a well rolled one. The tanky stats on it does help, but mainly you want elemental projector, increase your damage by 103% with that element when you have that element applied to yourself, which is guaranteed to happen with the spiritual driver class mod. So it's a massive damage increase. I think this is still better than the artifact you get at the end of DLC 2, the knowledge one. I forget the whole name of it. It's a weird name, but I think that was nerfed because it kind of was doing like ridiculous damage. So this is still, I think, the best artifact for this build in terms of damage. And it's going to be up all the time, so it's very consistent. For your shield and grenade, mainly this is super important, is getting the on action skill end gain 50% of whatever action skill element or whatever element. Make sure not to stack it, so don't do corrosive. It won't stack. Do, you know, corrosive, cryo, incinerary, whatever, and you can switch those out if you have more to just give you whatever elements that help you counter whatever you're facing. And for the shield, pretty much go everything that's tanky: stopgaps, rechargers, transformers. Transformers are a little bit different because if you're doing shock, you don't want to use one of those, but pretty much any tanky shield with these. The anointed on shields and grenades seem to roll a lot because there's just not a lot of anointeds for shields and grenade mods in the game. So I notice I get a ton of rolls for the action skill element rolls on shields and grenade mods. They drop all the time, so they shouldn't be too hard to get, but these are up pretty much 100% of the time with this build, so it is just a massive damage increase. Then for the weapons, mainly for this build, I'm using lobs and recursions right now. Now, if you're doing something that's, say, like a slaughter shaft or something like that, that's not as many enemies, recursions may not be as good as, say, something like the raid. I still think, and if you guys have watched a lot of my old videos, you'll know that pretty much since I started doing builds, since Borderlands 3 came out, like some of my first builds, I show the recursion. I say it's still one of the best AoE farming weapons in the game, and I was using it in slaughter shafts back then. I still think it's pretty good now, but I do think if you have some stronger single target damage stuff, like even the lob can be as good, maybe better some of the time, because just the differences, and you're not in a super open area or a super open area. Some of the slaughter shafts, it may be hard to get the recursion to bounce as much with, you know, switching different levels and stuff like that, enemies being in cover. This may be not the best of the choice sometime. Specifically, slaughter shaft is usually good. The raid, it's really good. You'll just have to change if it feels like it's not bouncing as much as you want. Now, I do have a decent anointed roll, not the best. On extra go end, weapon damage decreased by 100% for a short time. It's still a good one, but there are some better ones for Amara. Then the lobs, pretty much use any lobs. Again, I have on extra go end, weapon damage decreased by 100%. There is some better anointed rolls again, but the lobs are weird. So pretty much when I stopped playing Borderlands or took a break from it, they massively buffed the lobs and they made them 3-round bursts, which they were up until recently, and they were super good damage. Then they just nerfed them again to being a single shot again, but I think you could still shoot it as fast as a 3-round burst did. So these things are absolutely still ridiculous. Really high elemental damage per second with a good chance, really high base damage. They explode, they do splash damage, all really good. And just try to get any different elements of the lobs and the recursions. Go farm those up. And like I said, you can get better anointeds for these. You know, they're still going to be incredibly strong even without anointeds. So that is pretty much the entirety of the build. That's all of the different items. So subscribe if you want to see more Borderlands 3 content. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this build. I will be doing trying to look into some more unique builds because there are, you know, you can pretty much slam from any distance now. So I'm trying to do some slam builds and stuff like that. So if you want to keep an eye out for that, subscribe, and thanks for watching.
Time for a fight. So much power. One ready for you.
Stay still.
Here's how you make your network. Viewers, comment on the screen and tell us how you want the Vault Thief to die. We got Broadway